Hello, this is the last video about elicitation techniques. In the previous videos regarding elicitation techniques, we looked at the document analysis and analysis of the existing systems, and in the previous one we talked about communication heavy ones like interviews, like workshops and focus groups. In this one I'll be talking about questionnaires, observations, ethnography and scenarios. Let's start with the questionnaires. We can consider questionnaires as the kind of ultimate structured interview where you interview multiple persons all at the same time, multiple people at the same time. And of course, in this case, you might reach to a very large population, a lot of people. It can be quite cost effective. But and you may even make some statistically relevant statements on the requirements, because now you might reach into, instead of interviewing 10 people, you can do 50 or even hundreds. You can reach to a huge number of respondents. But the problem with the questionnaires is that they may be biased, they might be ignored or misunderstood by the people. So we all know we have been invited to a lot of surveys or questionnaires, and we know how it feels. I mean, sometimes you just click some things, I agree, and then you just to get rid of that thing, and you can't really seriously answer questions after 15 minutes or so. So that's kind of the cons of or disadvantages of using questionnaires. Quality of the obviously depends on the enthusiasm of the people who are that you're inviting to the questionnaire. And so basically the best way to use the questionnaire is to use it as a kind of complementary technique, or a technique that's complementing the other ones, like interviews, like the workshops and so on, to possibly reach out to a larger or a wider audience. That's what you can use questionnaires for. And it's a good practice, again, is to do a pilot questionnaire before you distribute the invitation to a larger audience. That's kind of the very good practice, definitely a good practice, to see if the questionnaire is right, to verify the questionnaire, basically. Observation and ethnography. So observation is basically is a setting where you as a business analyst observe someone performing a certain task. Sometimes it's also called, for some reasons, it's called sitting with Millie. And so it can basically complement the interviews quite effectively, as in interviews we know that the users are not able to answer your questions right away, or be able to express what they do in the best way possible. So with the observation, you sit down and then you see what they do, essentially. If you're a pilot, for instance, that could, if you want to create there's another pilot, if you would like to create a software system for aircraft management simulation, then it might be a good idea for you to be there and then see what these people are doing, for instance. Though it's a very costly tasks. So this is a good idea, particularly for critical and interactive tasks, but not just knowledge-intensive ones. Ethnography is some sort of an extreme case of observing. You basically become one of the tribe, let's say, and particularly works well for critical or mission critical or very complex systems. Again, the example of like becoming almost like a pilot as a business analyst is a rather extreme but a very realistic case. So that is basically how the ethnography and observation would work, or the strong and weak points. Obviously it's quite costly, both of them are quite costly, so use them carefully. Both are good for gathering tacit knowledge, something that is not very explicit or written somewhere. So that's what basically a tacit knowledge is, and knowledge that cannot be easily conveyed verbally, also including those that are assumed to be known. Scenarios. Here, basically, business analyst works with one or more users to go through different routes while performing an activity. So the more routes are covered, the better it is, obviously, because this leads to a more complete set of requirements. And essentially, this is also the actions performed when developing use cases and user stories. So you just go through some scenarios, obviously, and that's what we're going to do, or that's what we're going to discuss about use cases and scenarios later on, also in the next component, REM, requirements analysis and modeling. And this is very much like the techniques that are also called like storyboarding, also process modeling. This is also what we do. We go through some scenarios. So you just start with the happy pad, and then you start questioning about the exceptional situations, not like technical exceptions, but business level exceptions about what if, I don't know, what if the order doesn't come, what if it's cancelled, and those type of exceptional situations. So all these kind of paths become a scenario in their own. This may also be in the form of protocol analysis, which means that the business analyst documents the thought process of an expert as he or she carries out the process. So, I mean, in this case, that particular user provides a running commentary about what he or she is doing at that particular in time, so that scenario unfolds as the let's say running commentary goes. Okay, so that's the scenario. As a final point about requirements elicitation techniques, I would like to come back to that slide that I showed in the very first video about these elicitation techniques. So the types of software, or let's say the project types, if you like, regarding software development, and the techniques that are known to be effective under each. As you can see, again, interviews are basically kind of must or applicable for almost all settings. Workshops are also very, very important. Use questionnaires carefully, and like mass market, definitely you can use questionnaires for that. But I mean, corporate IS and in many other settings, they're not very, very useful, I must admit. Document analysis, obviously, you can just do that thing for the existing situations. But the dominant ones we see are the interviews and workshops. Okay, so that is it about this elicitation techniques. Perhaps I should also emphasize it again, that it's not just about what you do or how that techniques work, how those techniques work, but equally important is to know as a business analyst what the strengths of these techniques are, or what limitations do they incur. So that is very, very important, let's say, skill for a business analyst to have. That is it for this entire module about requirements basics and elicitation. So yeah, we'll see each other in another module. Good luck.